Welcome back to the deep dive. We are stepping into the deep chill of December, a month that I think is fundamentally deceptive.
It is. You see all the images, right? The coziness, the holiday cheer.
Exactly, this comforting, almost unbreakable illusion of safety built around family and home.
Yeah.
You'd think this is a time when the world just, slows down, becomes predictable.
But our sources today, and we have a stack of 9 really unsettling, anonymized accounts, they prove that December is, well, anything but safe.
So when that seasonal slowing happens, it creates these dangerous voids.
Yes. And those voids get filled by extreme isolation, high-stakes decisions driven by pressure, or, and this is the most insidious part, this profound social friction right inside the places we expect to be safest.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've been handed a collection of narratives that honestly read like a chilling lesson in human vulnerability. All of them are centered around winter, isolation, and those tiny moments where an everyday decision just takes a catastrophic turn.
Yeah.
I'm less interested in the immediate horror, though it's there, and more in the psychological mechanisms that allowed the horror to unfold in the first place.
And that's our mission in this deep dive. We're trying to extract that chilling common thread. We're looking really relentlessly for the exact points of failure.
Where did people ignore that tight, uncomfortable knot in their gut?
Exactly. Where did they prioritize quick convenience, or maybe most tragically, where did they actively choose silence over stepping in?
For me, I'm really focused on the patterns of self-deception, that strange, pervasive human tendency that lets us drive past a physical road-closed sign just because we saw someone else's tire tracks in the snow.
Yes. It's that idea of using other people's non-compliance to normalize our own high-risk decisions.
Yeah.
It's a survival bias that can backfire spectacularly.
And my focus is on the architecture of the vulnerability itself. We have the obvious element, physical isolation, the mountains, the remote feed mills. But we also have compromised trust, where altruism is literally weaponized. And maybe the most damaging factor, social collusion. A group actively participating in maintaining a convenient but destructive lie.
We need to see not just what happened, but why the vulnerability was amplified, pushing these people beyond the margin of safety.
Okay, let's start with a case that just perfectly embodies isolation and that high cost of schedule pressure. It's called Stevens Pass. This narrative starts with a man who's relocating his entire life from Portland to Spokane after a divorce. He was feeling this immense pressure, trying to keep pace with his peers from the class of 2005, just desperate for a clean, fast break, a fresh start.
And that internal pressure, that desire to maintain momentum and really control the narrative of his new life, that leads directly to the first fatal decision.
Ignoring a clear warning.
An explicit, reliable warning. He saw the delay that was being suggested as this unacceptable failure in his fresh start plan.
So he pulls into a Shell station in Gold Bar, about 60 miles east of Everett. The attendant, a local woman, she doesn't mince words at all.
No, she gives him an immediate, unambiguous warning.
She says, "The pass has been a mess all week. Semis jackknifed, plows are struggling." She tells him, "Take the long way through Wenatchee, add 3 hours to your trip, but you'll get there alive."
And there it is, the 3 hours. That is the initial friction point. He hears the warning, he thanks her politely.
And then immediately dismisses the advice entirely.
But why? I mean, that's the question. He saw a little patch of blue sky breaking through the clouds, and he took it as a good omen.
He thought her advice was outdated.
Exactly. He chose his own subjective optimism and his schedule over concrete, local, life-saving knowledge.
And that's really the core theme of this section. Ignoring warnings for convenience. He drives right into a situation that goes from, gentle flurries to a complete whiteout in 15 minutes.
But the real point of no return, the psychological breaking point, hits him around 10:00 a.m.
The physical barricade.
It's not just a sign. It's flashing lights, a metal gate, a message screaming, "Road closed, do not enter."
It's an absolute physical boundary. But his justification for crossing it, that was so fascinating. He sees an empty highway patrol car sitting there.
Which should be a warning sign, but instead he sees it as a sign of lax enforcement.
Right. And then the crucial detail. He sees fresh tire tracks in the powder, where other cars had clearly gone around the barrier.
And that's all he needs. He assumes the closure is just, a precaution, a government liability waiver, not a statement of lethal fact.
It's that mechanism of self-deception we talked about. The drivers who went before him, they provided the psychological cover for his own high-risk decision. They normalized it.
The human mind is just hardwired to find evidence that supports the outcome you want. He sought proof that the rule could be broken.
But he completely overlooked the fact that he had no proof the consequence had been avoided.
He followed the tracks, not the sign.
And his Silverado stalls out 2 miles past the summit, 10:47 a.m. The temperature is 19 degrees Fahrenheit, and he is now completely, utterly isolated.
The sound of the engine is gone, the radio is gone, it's just the wind.
And the silence of a road that he should not be on. Then the chilling discoveries begin. The snow eases up just enough for him to see the outlines of other cars.
The first one is a silver Toyota Corolla, almost completely buried.
Just the roofline is visible. And when he digs his way to the driver's side, he finds this detail that just makes your skin crawl. Deep, frantic scratches on the inside of the frosted window.
These weren't slow marks. This was panic. Someone trapped inside, clawing desperately at the glass because the door was frozen solid.
The car is empty, but there's a purse, wallet, coins spilled all over the seats. It suggests a desperate struggle before whoever was inside managed to get out.
A frantic struggle inside, followed by an escape into a lethal environment.
But the second discovery is even worse. He finds a dark minivan tilted in a drainage ditch. The sliding passenger door is open, but it's frozen halfway, sealed by ice.
And the focus immediately shifts to the evidence of flight. Leading away from that minivan, going up the steep slope toward the tree line, are small footprints.
Small enough for a woman or a teenager. And the spacing between them is wide, chaotic. They weren't walking, they were running.
Running for their lives into a freezing forest during a blizzard.
Which brings up the critical question he's facing. What danger was so urgent, so terrifying, that they would run up a hill into a forest, willingly trading the shelter of a car, however marginal, for the immediate risk of exposure?
It changes the entire context. The danger wasn't just the snow anymore.
So this leads to the narrator's own moral reckoning. He makes it back to his truck, runs the engine for warmth when he can. Around 3:00 p.m., the light is fading to this dull gray, and he hears it.
The distress signal.
3 short, distinct blasts of a horn. Distant, but unmistakable, coming from behind him on the road he just traveled.
And he describes this visceral conflict. He grabs his flashlight, he bundles up, his adrenaline spikes.
But the light is fading fast. The snow is picking up again. He realizes he could get hopelessly lost, just trying to find the source.
So he stays put.
He stays put. He admits he made a conscious decision to prioritize his own survival, abandoning the person signaling for help just a quarter mile away. That fear enforced a profound and potentially fatal silence.
And you have to acknowledge the lethality of the situation he was in. He was compromised. Moving into a severe storm is a death sentence. But my God, the psychological burden of that inaction is immense.
It's the brutal mathematics of isolation. When your resources are zero, self-preservation trumps everything.
The aftermath, when the rescue team finds him the next morning, is just devastating. He learns the truth in the hospital a couple days later. The man honking the horn, who was in a Honda SUV, was found dead of cardiac arrest.
Just a quarter mile behind where he had been stalled.
He had abandoned a man signaling for his life who, if he'd been found earlier, might have survived.
But the minivan story, that's where this adds a deeper, chilling layer of horror. The kind that official records just can't contain. The young mother was found frozen 200 yards into the woods. The official cause, exposure.
A tragic clinical report. But her teenage daughter, who survived by sheltering under a rocky overhang, she gave an account that the police just dismissed as, quote, shock-induced confusion.
And this is the moment where we just have to pause. The daughter claimed her mother had gone to flag down a figure she had spotted.
A figure.
A figure moving through the storm without a flashlight, without struggling against the snow, moving easily, effortlessly through the blizzard, as if the cold and the deep powder just didn't touch them.
And that detail is absolutely critical. It transforms this tragedy from a simple, predictable accident into an encounter with something deliberate or just inexplicable.
The official conclusion is straightforward. Exposure, an accident of nature.
But the witness account suggests the initial danger wasn't the snow itself, but an encounter with a presence that seemed immune to the elements. Something unnatural that triggered that fatal flight into the woods.
So the mother didn't run away because she was lost. She ran from something. Or maybe walked toward what she mistakenly thought was help. A figure that moved too easily to be human.
The cost of isolation here isn't just the lack of a rescue team, it's the vulnerability to these unseen, terrifying threats that only come out in the confused testimony of a survivor.
And it all started with a choice to ignore a warning sign for the sake of convenience. It led them all directly into the path of something incomprehensible.
So if Stephen's past was about the deadly mechanics of physical isolation, These next two cases are about exploiting two other constants of modern life, especially in December: altruism and convenience, using them as bait.
Right, we're entering a realm where the victim voluntarily isolates themselves because the motive, either helping people or saving some money, overrides their survival instinct.
The setting is carefully engineered.
Let's start with the fake charity scam. This one is in Ohio, January 2018. The atmosphere here is crucial. The state is in the grip of this massive, dangerous cold snap.
Pipes are bursting, homes are freezing, community desperation is spiking.
And that setting is so important because it heightens the altruism factor. People are already predisposed to help. They feel a moral obligation to answer a call for aid.
So the narrator, he's 24, buried under nursing school debt, and he signs up to volunteer for Heartland Winter Aid, a seemingly legitimate cause preying on a legitimate crisis.
And the key to the entire trap is in the assignment details. The email he gets provides only written directions. There's no Google Maps link, no GPS coordinates.
Which forces him to rely on bad signage and ensures he has to drive down these winding, unpaved roads to an isolated location, a decommissioned feed mill with faded red siding.
The lack of a digital trail for the location itself is the first calculated step.
And the second is the lack of cell service when he arrives. That seals the trap. The perpetrators have guaranteed complete isolation before the victim even gets out of their car.
So he finds the place. He sees the decay, but he's driven by his mission to help. But he notes these immediate red flags that he chooses to ignore. Two newer pickup trucks parked near this decaying building. They just look out of place.
And the two men, bearded Vernon Dunlap and a wiry man with a black-handled knife.
The transition from supposed charity workers to predators is immediate and aggressive. They go from a casual greeting to accusing him of trying to steal supplies.
That sudden shift in demeanor and the overt presence of a weapon, a 4-inch knife, that should have triggered an instant fight-or-flight response. But he's just paralyzed by confusion.
He's shoved into an outbuilding, and this is where the sheer, calculated horror of the whole operation is revealed. The contents aren't just disorganized junk, they're systematic. A metal folding chair with duct tape on the armrest.
And the pile of belongings.
We need to spend a minute on that pile. It wasn't just scattered items. It was a neat collection of coats, scarves, purses, ID cards, wallets, and phones, belonging to at least 9 different people who had been reported missing over 2 winters.
This was not an opportunistic robbery. This was a targeted abduction and likely murder operation. And they were using community aid as the perfect, irresistible camouflage.
That's the profound psychological insight here. The charity provided the necessary motive, that moral imperative, for the victims to drive voluntarily in terrible weather to a remote, cell service-free location.
They were using kindness itself as a mechanism for isolation and entrapment.
The narrator only escapes because of sheer chance. A slight miscalculation by the perpetrators. Candace, the second volunteer, was given the exact same assignment, just scheduled 15 minutes later.
And her arrival provides the disruption they need.
And the narrator's decisive action saves them both. Dunlap had carelessly set the truck keys down. He grabs the keys, sprints out, and screams this loud, unambiguous warning to Candace.
She immediately flees, too. That quick, chaotic break just shattered the kidnapper's controlled, isolated scenario. It turned a potential double tragedy into an escape.
Dunlap was arrested in March, trying to cross into Indiana. They recovered 3 bodies from a related property. The shorter, wiry man just vanished.
The lesson is brutal. In times of community crisis, genuine altruism becomes the perfect mask for extreme predation.
Okay, so now we pivot from that kind of geographic isolation to digital convenience being used as bait. The next account. The New Year's Eve ride. This is a modern horror story built entirely on our expectation that technology equals safety.
New Year's Eve is a prime example of high-stakes convenience pricing. The narrator is desperate to leave a party, the spike pricing is astronomical, so they accept a shared ride.
The pressure to save money and get home fast drives the decision. And accepting that slightly cheaper quick fix creates the precise vulnerability that perpetrators were waiting for.
The car arrives. Dark sedan, fogged windows, clean interior, silent driver. It all appears normal, transactionally, but the energy is immediately off.
Then the route recalculates, steering them toward these unknown, darker streets. The driver stays silent, the radio is off, the car feels sealed off from the celebration that's happening right outside the windows.
The route deviation is the first major red flag, but the narrator ignores it. Probably a mix of relief at leaving the party and that sunk cost fallacy. I've already started the ride, I'm almost home.
The real panic sets in when the driver stops at a closed bridge. The barricades have been moved aside, which signals a deliberate choice to go where no one else should be.
And the critical saving moment is pure instinct. The narrator steps out under the pretext of needing space and signal.
They create a physical break from the sealed environment of that car, because the moment it pulls away, the driver doesn't even wait. The app on their phone instantly refreshes to show nothing.
That is deeply unsettling. No record of the ride, no driver information, no payment history. The transaction was digitally scrubbed in real time.
Or maybe it was faked from the beginning.
The sophisticated digital infrastructure that promised convenience also provided the means for complete, untraceable abandonment. The victim is left physically stranded on a closed bridge and digitally erased from the system that should have protected them.
But the truly terrifying element here is the time gap, the memory lapse. The narrator wakes up at dawn near the abandoned bridge. When their phone is recovered at the police station, it had been sealed since they called for help. It shows the Happy New Year midnight notification.
Untouched.
Untouched by any subsequent activity. A significant temporal gap, an erasure of activity, is confirmed by the physical state of the device.
The implication of that digitally scrubbed involvement suggests an extremely prepared operator. This was designed not just to victimize the passenger, but to ensure that the crime leaves absolutely no digital trace in the system itself.
The victim was essentially put on a temporary, anonymous path that just vanished the moment they were dropped off. Convenience was the lure, and digital anonymity was the weapon.
Leaving the physical reality of being stranded for hours, but with zero proof that the interaction ever even happened.
So we're going to transition now into maybe the most insidious cost of convenience, the high cost of familial silence. This next section analyzes situations where people prioritize the smooth functioning of a holiday or a family legacy over truth, over justice.
Or even over protecting a vulnerable loved one.
Right, and this is where we really define and dissect what we're calling social collusion. The desire to preserve the family unit, the holiday atmosphere, the convenience of just maintaining the status quo. It becomes exponentially stronger than the impulse to act on a clear, painful, shattering truth.
Let's start with the farmhouse fall. This is outside Greenville, South Carolina. It's Christmas Eve, and the house is just thick with pre-existing tension. The mother's anxiety is almost palpable. Her repeated plea is, everyone needed to behave.
And the conflict is rooted in greed. Francine's new husband, Douglas, is aggressively pressuring the family to contest the grandfather's will,
which would force the sale of this beloved historic farmhouse. Alan, the narrator's brother, is acting as the protector of the family legacy. He's trying to shield the property from Douglas's financial maneuvers.
The confrontation escalates sharply. Alan and Douglas go upstairs, probably to have it out privately, and the critical piece of evidence is discovered later. Megan, Ray's girlfriend, had accidentally left her phone recording a 23-minute video in the dining room earlier.
At the 14-minute mark, this is at 12:27 a.m., just 5 minutes before the fall, the audio captures this low, venomous conversation from the landing. It's muffled, but it's clear enough.
The key evidence is in the quote. You hear Alan saying, "This ends tonight."
And then Douglas's cold, contemptuous reply, "You do not have the nerve."
That audio transforms the entire incident. It confirms a planned, hostile confrontation that went way past arguing and into a threat of finality.
And then the suspicious incident occurs. Douglas falls down the stairs. The narrator describes the scene chillingly. Limbs loose, head striking the banister, neck just wrong, eyes open but unseeing.
And Alan's immediate, highly composed, almost rehearsed explanation to the police sets the narrative instantly.
He was drinking heavily and stumbled backward.
The narrative of the accidental, alcohol-induced fall is immediately deployed and cemented by the person closest to the victim. But Francine, Douglas's wife, she provides the critical counter-evidence.
Douglas's phone, which had all the emails, texts, documents about contesting the will, it was missing from his back pocket.
And it was never found. If the fall was an accident, why was the evidence of the primary motive professionally removed from the scene?
So the narrator has this audio evidence that directly contradicts Alan's entire story. It proves a confrontation and a threat occurred just moments before the fall. The choice of silence is then sealed in a final, private conversation with Alan.
And Alan deploys this psychological warfare veiled as familial loyalty. His exact words were, "Douglas was going to destroy everything. He fell. That is what happened, and that is what everyone believed, and you need to ask yourself what kind of sister you want to be."
That's not a request. That is coercion.
It's a binary choice he's presenting her. Either protect the family and the farmhouse by endorsing the lie, or destroy everything by exposing the truth, which would implicate Alan in a murder investigation.
And she chooses silence. The audio evidence gets hidden on a separate hard drive, locked away. The cost here is her own conscience, her active participation in protecting a possible murderer, all to maintain the convenience of the family's financial stability and cohesion.
Our next account, Bridget's disappearance outside Toledo, shows this code of silence operating on a collective scale, all to protect the illusion of a perfect Christmas.
The tragedy here is that the abuse wasn't hidden at all. It was observable, acknowledged, and then consciously ignored.
You have Bridget flinching when her husband Oliver touches her. Her constant painful apologies for things that weren't her fault. Oliver correcting her stories in a voice that was flat and cold.
These are textbook signs of a controlling, abusive relationship that the family was actively choosing to filter out for the holiday.
The tension peaks in the hallway. Oliver is heard talking about Bridget making him look stupid. Her response is just muffled sobs. And Francine, fearful of any disruption, steps in and deploys the fatal, repeated family mantra.
Leave it alone. No one is ruining Christmas.
That phrase, "no one is ruining Christmas," that's the social contract of collusion. The need to preserve the holiday facade, the momentary peace, is deemed morally superior to protecting a vulnerable family member from observable violence.
It's a collective agreement to ignore a devastating truth.
Then the physical incident happens. A crash, a loud, muffled thud from a back room. Definitely glass or ceramic breaking.
Uncle Ray, who should be a figure of authority and protection, he intervenes, he comes back moments later, and he repeats the exact fearful mantra.
Everything's fine. No one is ruining Christmas.
Ray's repetition serves as the official familial decree. The incident, the sound of violence, is minimized and publicly closed. The social order is restored.
But Bridget emerges later wearing the clear physical sign of what happened. A dark, high-necked sweater has replaced the cream blouse she wore earlier.
And a distinct, finger-shaped red mark on her cheek, hastily concealed by makeup that couldn't quite cover the imprint.
The family saw it. The narrator saw it. But they had already chosen the narrative of peace.
The exit scene the next morning is the terrifying punctuation mark on their silence. The back door is wide open, cold air rushing in, drops of a dark substance on the kitchen floor.
And Bridget's wedding ring, placed carefully, deliberately, on a folded napkin on the table.
That careful placement of the ring is a communication strategy. It is designed to signify one thing. She left voluntarily, she rejected this life.
And Oliver provides the required immediate explanation. She left voluntarily sometime in the night. And the collective lie just snaps instantly into place.
The entire family, father, aunt, uncle, they all corroborate that Bridget was unhappy and wanted to get away.
They chose to protect the convenience of the lie, avoiding police, avoiding scandal, avoiding the profound guilt of confronting Oliver, over acknowledging the painful, self-incriminating truth that their collective silence enabled violence and resulted in tragedy.
Bridget's disappearance is the cost of not ruining Christmas.
We're going to shift now from familial collusion to transactional anonymity, where our narrators become these unwitting, documented participants on the periphery of serious crime, often pulled in because of speed, convenience, or just a small act of kindness.
These last three accounts demonstrate how proximity, digital tracking, and minor interactions can instantly make an anonymous person a critical, necessary figure in a criminal timeline, often without any idea of the danger they are holding or documenting.
Okay, let's look at the chilling coincidence of the Christmas Eve delivery. The narrator is a 26-year-old delivery app driver. He takes an $80 job, which is triple the normal rate, to Thornberry Lane in Westerville, Ohio on December 24th. He arrives at 9:48 p.m.
The premium price drives the action. It's just too good to pass up for a quick delivery.
But the timing is so critical to the official investigation. Police later confirmed the Hartman family homicides occurred sometime between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. that night.
He arrived deep in the 48th minute of that 3-hour window. He was almost certainly there while the perpetrators were still on the property.
The scene itself is immediately odd. House 4127 is completely dark, but there's an open second-floor window, even though it's freezing outside.
He rings, he knocks, waits, then leaves the package as instructed. The package, it turns out, was a 2-by-2-foot, 5 or 6 pound empty cardboard box from a storage unit rented under a fake name.
The empty box is the key. The delivery was purely transactional. It was designed specifically to create a traceable digital trail. Someone paid a massive premium for a driver, any driver, to physically stand on that porch and create a time-stamped, GPS-verified photographic record of being at that exact address at 9:52 p.m.
It's either a very calculated alibi creation or a sophisticated tactic to confuse the real time of death.
The horror is revealed later when police confiscate the delivery confirmation photo. The narrator reviews it and zooms in on the reflection in the frosted glass panel beside the front door.
And it reveals a blurry but unmistakably a face pressed against the window from inside, looking out.
That is one of the most terrifying details in this entire collection. For 4 minutes, the time the narrator stood on that porch, waiting, setting down the package, leaving someone inside, victim or killer, was watching his every move through the glass.
Completely silent, utterly unseen by the driver. He was an unwitting, documented participant in the crime's immediate aftermath. His GPS data, his photograph, now part of the criminal timeline.
The unseen watcher used the narrator's convenience as a documented shield against scrutiny.
The second case of unwitting involvement, the home invasion by recognition, it hinges on a seemingly small act of kindness backfiring.
The narrator gives money to a panhandler outside a convenience store. The man, described as having a thin jacket and uneven hair, he doesn't just take the money and leave. He pauses, looking intently, absorbing the narrator's features.
And that simple, charitable interaction established recognition. It established the crucial access connection.
Later that night, the man attempts a break-in. It's slow and deliberate at the front door. But his motive has shifted entirely from immediate financial need at the store to calculated access getting into the narrator's home.
When the front door fails, he shifts strategies and violently forces his way in through the back.
The initial kindness established trust, or at least provided enough recognition for the man to identify and target a specific residence. He wasn't panicked. He was moving with this calculated confidence because he knew his target.
That small, kind interaction essentially forfeited the narrator's anonymity and safety.
And finally, we tie back to Westerville with the hidden cash. This is another case of a victim unknowingly harboring physical criminal evidence.
The context is tight. A woman named Dorothy Weiss was murdered for cash in Westerville. The very next morning, $14,600 in amount, roughly consistent with the theft, appears in the narrator's locked apartment 20 minutes away.
The key is how it got there.
The perpetrator is Ronald Hutchkins, a 44-year-old former locksmith. He had done maintenance at that specific apartment complex 2 years earlier. He used his retained master keys to enter the locked apartment and hide the bulk of the stolen cash.
It was a calculated and brilliant risk. Hutchkins used the narrator's locked, private home as a temporary, anonymous storage unit. He was relying entirely on the victim's anonymity, a divorce claims adjuster with no known connections, and the distance from the murder site.
He planned to retrieve the money once the intense investigation cooled down.
The terrifying confrontation happens when Hutchkins returns for the money prematurely. The narrator hears 3 slow, polite taps at the front door. And then the chilling phrase that confirms everything. "I know you found it."
That simple 3-second phrase instantly removes the anonymity of the hiding spot. The narrator realizes they aren't just holding stolen goods. They are in active, immediate danger from a meticulous criminal who knew precisely how to get in and out of their locked apartment.
And the choice made by the narrator to turn in the money immediately to the detective, linking Hutchkins directly to both the murder scene and the hiding spot, that's what led to his arrest, and it's what saved the narrator's life.
The convenience of being a bland, unnoticed resident in a safe building almost cost him everything when he became the hiding place for someone else's hidden truth.
We have covered a vast terrain of darkness here, from, blizzard-swept mountains to the strained silence of a family Christmas table. Let's try to summarize the 3 core vulnerabilities that really define these 9 accounts.
First, you have physical isolation. It amplifies every lethal risk. It turns minor vehicle trouble on Stevens Pass or an act of altruism at a feed mill into a fatal trap. The isolation gave the criminal or the situation complete control.
Second, digital convenience. When it's offered at a premium, that triple-priced ride or the $80 delivery, it is almost always a calculated setup. It's designed to create digital confusion, erase traces, or establish a false digital alibi. It leverages the victim's need for speed or savings.
And third, social pressure and the code of silence, which is the most devastating. That collective desire for familial cohesion to not ruin Christmas. It overrode clear, painful, physical evidence of violence.
Resulting in the disappearance of Bridget and the cover-up of Douglas's fall, the cost of that silence is measured in bodies and ruined consciences.
And the common denominator across all of these accounts is the exploitation of trust, or the failure to act on that instinctive dread. We saw the figure moving effortlessly through the blizzard, the duct-taped chair, and the belongings of 9 missing people, the finger marks on a cousin's cheek concealed by makeup.
And the silent face watching through the frosted glass panel. These details should haunt us, because they were the physical manifestations of the internal warnings that were ignored.
It forces us to constantly question that small interaction, that small favor, or that slight deviation from the norm. The value of critical thinking against convenience just can't be overstated.
When a situation feels wrong, whether it's a closed highway sign with existing tracks, a high price for a quick service, or a flinch from a loved one, you have to question the hidden cost and be willing to take chaotic, decisive action. The narrators who survived were the ones who broke the pattern. They ran, they screamed, or they immediately turned in the cash.
And for those of you listening, remember this crucial lesson. The vulnerability is often created long before the confrontation even begins. It's created in the small choices, when we choose the easy way, the quiet way, or the way that requires us to ignore the signs that are physically, digitally, or socially right in front of us.
So here's our final provocative thought for this deep dive. In the world of these accounts, when convenience is offered at a premium, or when silence is enforced by loved ones, are we truly dealing with an opportunity to save time or money, or are we, without knowing it, being set up to be the temporary, unknowing hiding spot for someone else's terrible hidden truth? Think about it the next time the easy way feels just a little too easy. We'll see you next time.